Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today. My name is Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. I'm here with City Councilman Peter Vallone Jr., with Assemblyman Brian Kavanaugh of Manhattan, with Councilwoman Melissa Mark Viverito of the Bronx and Manhattan, and State Senator and co-leader of the Senate, Senator Jeff Klein. We're here today basically because what we're calling for is a gun crime registry. Back in earlier this year when I was giving my State of the Borough address, we were trying to find another way to combat gun violence in our city. If you've been paying a little bit of attention in the Bronx and throughout the city of New York, we continue to see a reduction in crime, in shooting victims and shooting crimes, and that's because of a number of reasons. We've been working with the New York Police Department. Many of us here, if not all of us, have made sure that our gun buyback programs have been successful. In the Bronx, I've initiated something called the Peace in Our Streets Initiative, where we walk the streets with elected officials, community leaders, clergy organization, the clergy task force out of my office, and we knock on doors in the New York Housing Authority in particular, and we give folks information on the 866 Gun Stop Hotline, which is an anonymous hotline where if people report someone in their building or in their block who has an illegal gun and that results in an arrest, they get compensated $1,000. And that has been successful. It's been a program that's been around over 10 years, but very few people know about it. And so since we've been doing it in the Bronx, the amount of calls to 866 Gun Stop has increased, the amount of arrests have increased, the amount of weapons confiscated have increased, and the amount of money compensated has increased in our borough, and we're happy for that. So we've seen with the legislators, whether it's the senator or the assemblyman, how New York continues to lead the way in having the toughest gun control laws in the nation. And so one of the other things that we believe needs to happen is to start a public campaign, a public awareness campaign, and we wanted to provide the public with the information as to who in our communities, who in our neighborhoods have been convicted of gun crimes. And so when we were doing our research, we saw that Councilman Peter Vallone already passed a city law where you would have this gun crime registry, but it was available it is available today just to the NYPD. And so just like the sex offender registry, what we wanted to do is to arm, no pun intended, our communities with the list of those individuals so they know exactly who among us, so that we know who among us are convicted of gun crimes. And so what this bill would essentially do is that it would require those individuals who were convicted of having an illegal loaded handgun, possession of 3 or more illegal handguns, possession of a handgun by a convicted felon, possession of an assault weapon, and possession of a disguised firearm to register with the NYPD as soon as they get out of doing their time, to do this periodically where they continue to give their name, their address, an updated photograph, and so that this information will be posted on the internet. We believe it would go a great way to ensure that individuals can be identified. It would go a great way to make sure that people in the community know who to stay away from, who to keep their children away from, just the same way that we do with the sex offender registry. We believe that it would go a great way into preventive measures because we don't believe that anybody wants to see their names and their face plastered all over the internet. And so our message is to those individuals who would even think of having an illegal gun, don't do it. You will be caught, you will be exposed, your face will be put on blast. And I'm so thankful that we have leadership here today from different parts of New York City, leadership where at times we disagree on other things, but whether you're conservative, whether you're progressive, the one thing that all of us can agree on is that we're sick and tired of having families who are crying because someone in their family was a victim of a gun crime. We are sick and tired of seeing senior citizens assaulted and pistol whipped or have a gun flashed in front of them. And we are sick and tired of criminals thinking that they can get away with it. We are sick and tired of criminals thinking that they can hide in the shadows. And so we thank those elected leaders here, and I thank Peter Vallone for not only the initial law that he passed, but to have this at my behest amended in tomorrow's State of Council meeting. And we urge all of the city council members to vote for this amendment so that we can give New Yorkers the ability to identify those criminals who have possessed illegal weapons who are in our neighborhoods, and make sure that they never ever use it again. And so without further ado, I want to bring to the mic the city council member who sponsored the first gun registry bill and who is going to amend it to make sure that, just like the NYPD, all New Yorkers have accessibility to this information. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilman Peter Vallone Jr.
Thank you, Ruben. Now, here in New York City, we shine the spotlight of the law on gun offenders, our most violent criminals. Now, Ruben and I working together are going to keep the eyes of the public on those criminals too. And we're going to expand that spotlight statewide and give all parents the information they need to keep their kids safe. Hey, if there's somebody on my block who's been convicted of a gun offense, I want to know. I'm the parent of teenagers. I want to know who they're hanging out with. I want us to have a say in my kids' future and their safety. And this law will give them that information. An informed public is a safer public. Just by way of history, New York City has led the way in the fight against illegal guns. And among so many other things, in 2004, I wrote the law that created a 90-day waiting period here in New York City, 90 days between gun purchases. We're only asking for a much shorter federal period that would help New York City out. They won't even do that, but we have a 90-day period here. And in 2006, the mayor and I introduced this legislation to create a gun offender registry. And what it does is, if you commit an offense with a gun, you go on this registry for 5 years. And you've got to check in every 6 months with the police department. And if you don't, you have violated the law, and you can go back to jail. And last year alone, there were 12 individuals who were arrested for violating the terms of the gun offender registry. And all of the studies show that these are our most violent criminals, and they have some of the highest recidivism rates. So society should be keeping an eye on them. And what we're doing now is we're giving the public the right to keep an eye on them, and we're giving everyone in the state the right to keep an eye on them. So I want to thank Ruben Diaz for coming up with this idea to expand what I've already done. What we did here in New York City was the first of its kind in the nation. And now it's being copied in other cities like Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So it's like 100 degrees. I'll stop talking now and turn it back over to Ruben. Thank you for your help on this, everybody behind me.
Thank you, Councilman. And someone who has been a champion of making sure that we curb violence, not just in the Bronx, not just in New York City, but in the entire state of New York, who has a long history, even when I served with him in the New York State Assembly, and now as co-leader of the Senate. He's even started a new initiative in our borough once again, and that's co-leader, State Senator Jeff Klein.
Thank you, Borough President. I want to thank the Borough President and Councilman Vallone and everyone behind me today for their leadership on this important issue. One of the most proudest moments in the legislature this session was the passage of the SAFE Act. I was the proud sponsor of that bill in the state Senate, which finally bans high-capacity weapons, bans high-capacity magazines, and keeps guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. We also crack down on illegal guns. But I think what we're doing here today is another weapon in the public's arsenal against gun violence. That's why I sponsored Borough President's legislation in the Senate. We actually got it into our one-house budget resolution in the Senate this year, which passed. But we need to make sure that this session it's the law of the land. Megan's Law is something that I was one of the original sponsors of in New York State. It was a very common sense approach to let the public know that the dangerous sexual predator is living in their community. I think we have to turn the attention to those who are carrying weapons, who were convicted of a crime involving a weapon, and let communities know about that. I think we can't stop it. We have to make sure we crack down on illegal guns. We have to educate our young people about illegal guns, and I think this is one more way that we can stand up and eliminate gun violence, not only in our city but in our state. So I'm proud to really make this one of my priorities in the upcoming legislative session. I want to thank all my colleagues.
Thank you, Senator. Someone who has been a true champion here in the New York City Council, and as the borough president, I welcome her. Now that her district encompasses more and more of my borough. She was originally, for the most part, in Spanish Harlem. Now she's also Spanish Harlem and the Bronx, and we can certainly use her talent, but she supports us as well, and that's Councilwoman Melissa Marguerite.
Thank the borough president for his leadership in presenting this idea, which also, as in terms of public information, this registry is being done in other cities as well. I think Chicago is one that has it, and it's really interesting to see how information is power, and getting this information, how we can really keep our communities safe. We all know, obviously, it's been pretty much present in the conversation and the discourse in this city and in many of our communities, how our communities are plagued with gun violence, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that we keep our city and our streets safe. So I look forward to the amendment, I look forward to the debate that's going to ensue, and look forward to this process as it moves forward in amending the law that was presented and passed thanks to the leadership of Councilmember Vallone. So thank you, President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And whether you're from the northern part of Manhattan, or the eastern Bronx, or the South Bronx, or the Lower East Side, I think that we're all in agreement that this is the right thing to do. And from the Lower East Side, we have Assemblyman Brian Kavanaugh with us.
Thanks very much, Brian Kavanaugh, representing Lower East Side Manhattan and the State Assembly. And as has been said, we're building really today on a record of great accomplishment on this issue in New York. Whether it's the work that Borough President Diaz has done in the Bronx to get the message out to the community and make sure that we have effective policing, or the work of our city council passing really terrific laws that have led the way around the country. And of course, as was mentioned, under the leadership of Jeff Klein and the governor and the speaker, we have the New York SAFE Act, which makes New York State laws the toughest in the country. I chair state legislators, co-chair state legislators against illegal guns. I've been working very actively in these issues for many years. And one thing that is clear to me is that as much as we have had success in this area, we are not done with this issue. We are not done because we continue to have too many guns in our communities, like the one I represent on the Lower East Side, too many shootings, too many funerals, too many people wondering why it is necessary for people to solve their problems by pulling out a gun and shooting away. And initiatives like this that look for creative ways to expand on what we've already accomplished, to get the message out to the public. And significantly, the New York SAFE Act in many respects took things we were already doing in New York City and made them statewide. The next step, of course, with many of these things is to make them nationwide. But this is a great initiative, and I'm very proud to support the President and all of the people working on this. And I look forward to working with them to get this done statewide. Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I just want to say that while the councilman is introducing the amendment to the city's law tomorrow in the State Council, again, we thank the state senator for passing it in the Senate's budget in the Senate. But in the Assembly, we also have Assemblyman Carl Hasty, who's introducing this, so that not only, again, we are all in agreement that we should not only just have this in the city of New York, but throughout the state of New York. You should also understand that this type of gun registry is already done in other parts of the nation, in Baltimore, New Orleans, and in other municipalities. And I just want to say, in fact, Carl Hasty is on his way right now. Déjeme hablar en español un poquito, mientras tanto. La razón que estamos aquí hoy, sí. La razón que estamos aquí hoy, gracias al concejal Vallone Jr. de Queens, el senador Jeff Klein del Bronx, la concejal Melissa Marguerite de Manhattan y el Bronx, el asambleísta Brian Kavanaugh de Manhattan y el asambleísta Carl Hasty, porque estamos pidiéndole al Consejo Municipal que le haga una enmienda a la ley de la ciudad de Nueva York, donde tenemos una lista de aquellas personas que son criminales y que usaron armas ilegales en su crimen. Esa lista ya la tiene el Departamento de Policía, pero lo que nosotros queremos es que también lo tenga el público. Y estamos aquí hoy porque sabemos que cuando una persona sabe que su cara, que su nombre y su dirección le va a estar por todo el internet, yo creo que ellos van a pensar doble, a ver si van a cometer un crimen. Y entonces nosotros como oficiales electos, seamos conservadores o liberales, a veces no estamos de acuerdo en un sinnúmero de diferentes temas, pero la realidad es que en la ciudad de Nueva York todos, seamos de Manhattan, de Brooklyn, latinos, anglosajones, italianos, musulmanes, lo que sea, ninguno de nosotros queremos que haya violencia en la ciudad de Nueva York, que haya tiroteos en la ciudad de Nueva York y que los criminales se piensen que nadie se va a notar quiénes son y este proyecto de ley hace eso. Nosotros vamos a poder identificar como comunidad, le estamos pidiendo al Consejo Municipal que pasen esta enmienda y también gracias al senador Jeff Klein y al asambleísta Carl Hasty, ojalá que en el futuro vamos a tener esta ley no solamente en la ciudad de Nueva York, sino a nivel de todo el estado de Nueva York. I just want to bring up the sponsor of the legislation as well in the New York State Assembly, and that's my good friend, Assemblyman and Chair of the Bronx Democratic Party, Assemblyman Carl Hasty.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be here on such an important issue, and just a little background on why I even came up with the legislation. A lot of times, legislation for us is born out of a constituent's concern. And I had a long-time constituent whose son was killed by someone who was living in the same development who had previously been known to have a gun. And sometimes the knowledge of people in the communities who have guns can even give the community some more awareness as to some of the dangers that are there. So I think when you have an informed community, you have a knowledgeable community, you have an informed community. So I want to applaud also Jeff Klein, who also sponsors some of the legislation in the state as well, and Peter Vallone Jr. and also the borough president wanting to bring such an issue because it's the illegal guns is what is really doing damage to the community's particular color. So I applaud all who are joining with us and trying to get these registries done. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And with that, any questions, please? Yes.
Matt Ganesh, the Newtown Dynasty. Yesterday, as everyone knows, there was a shooting at an elementary school near Atlanta, Georgia. Is there any relationship, this kind of legislation, could it prevent something like that? Is there, what would you say to that?
Well, I don't know all the details. I don't know if anyone here does on the shooting. Obviously, there are a number of things that this nation needs to do to curb gun violence and the sick gun mentality and the gun culture of the United States. That's the reason why I'm so happy that New York State has been so progressive in their stricter gun control laws. And it's unfortunate that you still have a strong gun lobby that disallows for Congress and the President to ultimately pass gun laws in uniformity throughout the country, whether it's background checks, whether it's someone with the type of weapons and how many weapons they can buy and how much ammunition. And so I don't know all of the details. Certainly with a gun crime registry like this, it at least lets us know, just like with sex offenders, the sex offender list, who among us are those that are convicted of gun crimes and who are those that we need to stay away from. And certainly those people that we need to identify should there be a shooting around the neighborhood and that could potentially have been the culprits of those gun shootings. And so I don't know the details yet of what happened in that school. It's tragic. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the kids that were so scared. Fortunately, it wasn't the same thing that we saw in Connecticut, but certainly I'm sure that there's some other way. In other words, this is not the end or be all. I was so proud, for instance, as a borough president, having a seat at the NICERS board to work with Borough President Scott Stringer to divest New York City retirement pension funds from companies that manufacture and make a profit from guns. So there are a number of things that need to be done. I'm not sure, given the information I have right now, whether or not a gun registry would have solved this particular instance. but there's certainly a number of things that we need to do, and that's why we continue to look for innovative ways, and we believe this is one of the ways that we can solve that sick gun culture. Yes.
The mayor was supportive of the 2006 law, the city's gun registry. Is there any indication that he or the mayor's against violent illegal guns are going to support this extension?
I have not spoken to the mayor as of yet. Peter, do you know?
It's one of their priorities. It's on, if you go to the website, Mayors Against Gun Violence, this legislation is one of their priorities.
I expect the usual pushback against anything that goes on the web from the administration, but the idea of making it statewide, they're supportive.
And so on a personal note, I don't agree with Mayor Bloomberg on everything. I think he, however, has done an amazing job at bringing gun violence and addressing, again, illegal guns and guns that are being purchased even legally in other states coming and making their way to New York City. I think he's done a great job at that. Ralph? Another subject? No subject on this topic. Sure.
Una pregunta, ¿cuál sería la diferencia entre ahorita uno meterse en internet y buscar el récord público de un criminal a lo que ustedes están haciendo?
Porque ahora estos son personas que fueron convertidos por armas ilegales. Como está escrita la ley ahora, hoy en día, gracias al concejal Vallone Jr., la única agencia que tiene acceso a esa información es el Departamento de Policía. Nosotros lo que estamos diciendo es que debemos de tener una enmienda para que el público también pueda tener ese mismo acceso como la policía. Para que nosotros, yo tengo hijos, tengo dos varones, uno de 20 años, uno de 18 años, Tiro Bolón tiene hijos, todos tenemos hijos aquí y me gustaría saber quién de mis vecinos hicieron un acto de criminal usando un arma ilegal, como también lo tenemos con sex offenders. Esa misma información. También me gustaría saber si alguien en mi edificio al cruzar la calle se mudó o si vive ahí para evitar que mis hijos se hagan amistades con ellos. Para mí personalmente, evitar de yo hacerme amistad con ellos también.
O sea, ahorita esa información no está disponible ni en récords públicos.
No, esto no ahora, sí. Solamente el departamento policíaca tiene la información.
Pero ¿cómo podría eso evitar esos casos? Si nos da un ejemplo.
No te escucho.
¿Cómo podría, si se aplica esta ley, cómo eso podría evitar casos de...
Cuando uno ve que en su cara, un joven que ni siquiera todavía ha cometido un crimen, yo creo que lo piensan doble. De que yo no quiero mi cara por todos los sitios, que todo el mundo sepa, yo no quiero ese bochorno. Que todo el mundo sepa que yo hice algo con un arma ilegal. Ahora, una persona que ya cometió un acto criminal con una arma, igual como los sex offenders, ellos también, ya que hicieron tiempo, cuando ellos ven que su vecindario, que públicamente todo el mundo sabe quiénes son, yo creo que también lo piensan doble, porque el poder del criminal, creyéndose y sabiendo que si cometen un acto, que nadie va a decir nada y que nadie se va a saber quiénes son. Esto ahora lo sacan de la sombra, que lo ponen al público y le ponemos una luz brillante y le mandamos un mensaje grande y claro, que si cometen un acto que van a tener su cara pública y con eso vamos a poder identificarlo hasta más fácil por la próxima vez. Yes.
Are there any instances that you know about the police making arrests after shooting their investigation using the registry?
There were 12 arrests last year alone of people who did not sign in with the police department. And as I said before, people who are arrested with a gun are 4 times more likely to commit violent offenses than anyone else. And perhaps a violent offense could be prevented by going out and getting somebody who has not registered and throwing them back in jail on that offense alone before they can get their hands on another gun and commit a more violent crime.
Is that the intention though, or is it also to help their investigation?
There are a lot of motivations behind the law, and it does provide leads. It does allow the police to know the whereabouts of our potentially most violent people at all times, and it does hopefully prevent someone who's intent on getting another gun from doing it.
And it's very simple. It's a very simple message. I mean, because the police department already has this information readily accessible to them. But when we speak of the amendment, what we want is the community to know now. If you live in a building such as I do, and you see that there's a moving truck in front of your building, it's a very simple question. Would you like to know if that person who's moving into your building was convicted last year or 18 months ago for robbing and sticking up a bodega, for robbing and sticking up an old lady, for shooting somebody in a corner in some other parts of the city? I think every single New Yorker would want to know that. Yes.
If more people are killing with knife, why have them registered to?
Say that again?
If more people are killed with knife, why they not registered to?
Well, that's a thought. But right now we are concentrating on the gun crime registry. Maybe at some point, you know, we have to continue to expand. Again, this is not the end all be all. This is not how we're going to solve all types of violence. But I think that this is another step in the right direction. Yes, on topic.
Yeah, just some clarity. So there's a law now in the state assembly and the state senate.
There's a bill.
A bill.
Yes.
And in the New York City, there's already the public registry, or not yet?
No, in New York City, thanks to Councilman Vallone Jr., there's a gun crime registry, but it's only made available to the police department.
And the state doesn't even have it at all.
The state doesn't have that at all. So 1 second. At the New York City Charter, as the borough president, allows at my behest a New York City council person to introduce legislation. And so, working with Peter Vallone Jr., what we're doing is that we're amending the existing city law so that we can make this available to the public, not just to the police department. Senator Jeff Klein and Assemblyman Carl Hasty, they're making sure, because even if we do this, and hopefully when we do this in the city, it's not statewide. What they're making sure is that we have legislation, hopefully signed by the governor, where we have it statewide.
Okay, and when do you hope, especially in terms of the city bill, when do you hope that this can be passed into law?
I'm introducing it tomorrow. I'm hoping it's before January because I'm term limited out as well as the mayor. But hopefully I'll be working with Ruben and under the law that he just stated and ensuring that this passes even if it doesn't happen by January.
Anybody else on topic?
Is there any concern that someone who's been convicted and gets out on this registry, they would find it hard to get a job, and all of these things, and that might be recidivism because
well, they already.
It's not public.
Yeah, but you still have to make it to. You gotta get that the employee gets that access to that information. I mean, and so there's a simple solution to that is don't play with guns, don't carry a gun, don't shoot anybody, don't rob anybody. Do what the overwhelming majority of New Yorkers and Americans do, and that's be a law-abiding citizen, and that's your best chance of getting employment.
Sorry, I missed the recidivism rate that you mentioned. Can you read?
The information is in the release that's going to be handed out, but it's 4 times higher for committing violent crimes. Someone who's arrested on a gun offense has a 4 times higher rate in the future for committing a violent crime. They have some of the highest recidivism rates, second only to sex offenders, and they're already on the list.